So this example we are going to see uh, how I can get the same response from a local host, so that my computer itself going to become as a server, and the emulator going to get the data from it. The emulator doesn't have any idea, because emulator simply requires a URL so that the data could be landed over here. So that URL this time going to be a local host. A local host mean your computer, but that we have some sort of hooks also need to be added. This is mainly useful if you have any issues over internet access, which your proxy does not permit you to access outside network. If it is such a restriction is there, we can use this workaround. Uh, because my scope is not to see how your networking thing being set up, because how what kind of restriction is there, I could not see, and probably I'm not the right person to invalidate them. So in this case I just probably give you a fix so that you can get the same response as if you're getting from the server. Okay, but my emulator can access internet, but I'm going to assume my emulator is not able to access internet as of now. So if you have your Tomcat, my case, my Tomcat is there in a folder called some sort of folder. It is there. So it's almost same process across Windows or Linux, Mac, or anything else. Probably the way I start and stop may vary, but you may have a nice icon provider so that you can directly start or stop your Tomcat. So let me start my Tomcat server. I may need a terminal to do that. Command line, what we call. So let me see. Okay, I'm just moving to my Tomcat folder. It's nothing to do with your Windows environment. I'm just trying to start my Tomcat. That's it. Okay, I think my Tomcat is up and running now. Okay, so my case, my Tomcat is running. So since I get this welcome message, 7.0, my Tomcat runs on this. I have this version. Maybe I don't know where I installed the 8, but this is the right one. 7 is pretty flexible. Uh, so this Tomcat, I just need to verify whether this Tomcat is accessible to my phone. So usual way we always go to browser and verify. But I'm trying to type the same. It goes something wrong. Something terribly going wrong. Uh, Main thing, localhost is a kind of a link, a kind of a resolver. Localhost, if you access in your computer browser, it will point to your computer. The same localhost, if you try to run in your phone browser, it will point the phone only. It may not be pointing your computer specifically. So I may need to give a real identity. If you have your computer name defined, that you can give. Otherwise, Android has one simple mechanism that local host of the computer can be accessed using the standard IP address 10.0.2.2. So standard. So this will automatically point your PC or Mac or wherever the emulator is running, and of course the port number. Now if you see, this Tomcat is accessible. Before doing anything, make sure you verify this part works. So we can identify whether the PC and the Tomcat communication, the PC and emulator can easily pick the data between them. This would require no proxy setting or anything if you have your internet thing blocked, but this part will work without any issues. So 10.0.2.2, uh, if you do not get it, probably you may disable the proxy for some time, then you try to see it. I mean your computer proxy, because it just need to resolve to your local computer, not your LAN or something like that. Because I've noticed the CDS also contains some sort of subnet mask start with something 10.x something like that. So that some sort of confusion happens. You may turn off your proxy setting, then run the Tomcat, go to the emulator browser, check by typing 10.0.2.2, the port number whatever been assigned, usually 880, and then you see if it is coming, so you have no problem accessing a server environment. Okay, so this part is fine for me and it works. So let me close. I'm moving to my application. So the last example was accessing internet address, something upload.wikimedia.org. Since you have a problem accessing the URL outside of your domain, now you can put, of course we need to have the image copied, so let's see how to copy that. Let me pick some pictures. I don't know, I'm pretty obsessed with Obama. A lot of Obama pictures are there in my computer. Okay, go to your Tomcat folder. You should, yeah, inside the Tomcat folder, there should be a folder called Web Apps. You can create any folder inside, say my pick, something. Inside, paste your image, whatever image you have. So this folder, this can be accessed in this way. For example, localhost 8080, my pick. So it can be accessed through this URL. So now you have a server running and that server has an image. So this image we want to load it into our emulator, I mean in our device. So go back. Only condition, I should not put localhost, instead 10.0.2. So it will try to get a connection to your PC and get access to your Tomcat. From there it will find, it will try to access this folder, and of course it will get the image from that. So make sure it is a valid URL and contains a valid IP which will point to your computer. So 10.0.2.2, and wherever you put localhost, simply change it to 10.0.2.2, and make sure your proxy is disabled if you do not get a result. So just test that part also. I have really no idea, because my confusion is there. If a proxy is set, your computer becomes part of your LAN. Your LAN may have the same subnet mask, which may confuse your IP resolving or something like that. So proxy, whatever proxy is there, disable it and then do this. So now you have a simple LAN connection between your computer and your emulator alone. You are outside of network, so that will be easy for us to test this. So now I'm trying to load this one. Okay. It loaded pretty fast, of course, expected because it is not going to internet. The resource is pretty close by. But still, as if it accessed the web service, sorry, remote server and got the data, and this particular image is loaded. So this is a workaround who, I mean, if you do not have access to internet, which you want to load the data still using AsyncTask, but still want to get everything loaded from the server, we just use our Tomcat or development server, and this is what you will do. For example, if you're working on both the side, uh, like you're developing Android application parallel, you're also developing the server side, this kind of scenario will help you. But that's a highly impossible case for you. You may be only working on Android, you may not be working on the server side. So in that case, your the web service development team will help you to giving this kind of URL they'll give you. So what are all the URL they're giving you? You're just going to put it and trying to get the data. If a data doesn't come, that's their problem. It may not be yours. But since in our example, in our classroom, we have to see it, so we slightly went to other side. We installed Tomcat and the data. But apart from this, we may not be requiring it. So this is a simple workaround. So I'm going to move on creating some other web service. I'm going to make HTTP get and post examples, so that how these commands will work. So let me see if I can get any public apps. Google.com. There are pretty lot of public web services available, but I especially want to choose this for my one of example for HTTP GET, because I do have a requirement of doing a reverse geocoding when I talk about GPS. Since it is a public web service, I can access this. Let me see, reverse geocoding. Okay, if you notice, if you access this URL, uh, Google is going to respond with this result. Let me put it. See, if you access this URL as given by on some sort of example one, once you access this URL, you are getting a JSON response. Pretty obvious one, because it's pretty easy to identify the JSONs and all curly brace and square boxes, and give you a pretty longer response. It contains various things. So I want to access this URL and get the JSON response, decode or parse the JSON and get back the data. I'm interested in one of an object called formatted address. It means if you send this latitude and longitude, the formatted address will contain the readable address. So see, if you notice, it is 277 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, and some address it is given. Probably I can replace it with the current one. Remember, this kind of URL, the sending the data in the URL itself is actually called HTTP GET. Mean the payload, the data which is transferring from your client to server would be visible in the URL itself. So obviously the parameter which we are trying to send is the latitude longitude. This in fact it's just one argument, because anything followed by question mark and equal will be called key, and this is the lat lng is a key, and this is value. The whole thing including the comma is value. So if you want to send another data, name, and another one password, it means I'm trying to send various data to server. The first one being lat lng, and second one being a name, the third one being a password. So these three payloads, datas I'm sending to server. The server will have some sort of code which will pick the data from the HTTP GET and do the backend operation may validate your username password and try to send you the relevant. For example, username password is actually matches with the one in the server, will give you a response stating that successfully logged in. The result code may contain some sort of say status okay. If your password is wrong, maybe password is failed or login failed. Some sort of message. I cannot guarantee like what kind of message, depends on the server environment. We may see we will create our own service that time we will create how we can emulate it. But at this point, this is a pretty simple example of HTTP GET looks like. Uh, all it sends one data. Since I cannot send them because the Google won't capture it because I simply modified. Google has given me only this URL, but I just said it is also possible to send multiple datas, but the data is actually traveling the URL itself. It's pretty visible and may not be secure because the password is visible. So it's not the right approach though, but it still carries the data. So sending the data through the URL and having the key value pairs separated by, I mean the things start with a question mark and separated by ampersand symbol. So payloads could be separated and can be taken back. So this is called key. This is called value. So and okay, fine. So we have to see this how things goes on. Okay, I'd like to change the URL to somewhere it is there. Trying to find our office. So here it is. I think it should be somewhere here. Okay, so this is called something first main road. This is the latitude longitude. You can, if you change it, you'll get a different response. See, if you notice the formatted address, you're getting support in industrial estate, something like that. You really want a dynamic. Once again, the spacing has come, seems to be. That's still right one. Be careful if you are using HTTP GET. There should not be any space between the payloads. Then it will try to manipulate and fill the gap using the %20 something like that. So if you see this, the reverse geocoded one from the latitude longitude contains the readable address, the physical address. But it gives you more than one possibility because the Googles may not be perfect with a Google database. So it gives the first highest, maybe the accurate one, the first one. The less accurate one, maybe Tamil Nadu, India, of course. The other options, it just goes on. So as far as at least it try to give you a state and country as a minimum guarantee that where's your latitude and longitude is point. Make sure you give a valid latitude and longitude in the same format. If you give a latitude, longitude, and reverse order, of course you won't get any response. So I'm going to call this URL, trying to see if I can get back this JSON and I can display it in my application. So now we are going to see a real example on how to write a web service, or how to access or consume the web service. Hope we can keep a new example. Couple of string, I'll keep it. If I'm going to need buttons to access them, post. Just some strings. I've kept it. Maybe I'll add them. Required. I want to put the link in the menu so that from the first activity I'll probably have some sort of drop downs. Sorry, the menu icons. So the settings is already there. I set it never, but if that thing it is not visible, I already told you, you can if room or maybe always show you can put it. But for my emulator, things are appearing, so maybe I can get post. Uh, Order and category, that doesn't matter for us. Okay. I would like to make sure whether those things are appearing first. So just I'm going to add a couple of activities. So want to see the HTTP get example, I'll be clicking this and going to an activity there, I'll have those things. So just I want to integrate that and make it as a single example rather than creating new exercises. First one, get. Just created an activity for me, and I really don't want to show any menu inflator or anything else. I forgot to add the parent activity. The best way to put the back button would be overriding or getting access to our action bar and put a show home as up button enabled. But if you want to do it through the manifest way, you can still use it by in the manifest you can define. So this activity is having the parent activity name as main activity. If you put it, automatically the back button will be put for you, and when you click it, that activity will go back. But there is some sort of issues using this way. What it does mean, typically it recreates the activity. I mean that kills the previous activity, and when you click on the back button, it recreates the home activity. So that eventually disturb our, I mean, a stack. So I'll still show you how it is actually doing. Activity. Sorry, I need to have some other way. So this one I need to add. That. we already know. Okay, I went back. Sorry, I went inside an activity called HTTP get, and it has already put a back button for me because since in the manifest I mentioned the parent activity name is main activity, so it understood okay the activity which you opened is a child of a main activity, so automatically it has put. So clicking back to take the user back to this main activity. But the problem, if you notice, the image is missing here. In ideal condition, the image should remain because, as we know, an activity launches on another activity. The current activity remains in the background. A new activity gets launched. So, in this case, in the real scenario, once I launch a new activity, anytime if I come back, I should still see where I left. But if you notice, this part doesn't put. It just recreates seems to be. But that's not an expected thing. That's the reason I consider avoiding this strategy of declaring in the manifest, though it reduces plenty of work, but it disturbs my stack. So I probably may not prefer declaring this kind of parent activity name and con. I don't want to do. If at all I want to come back, I'll manually override until the action bar put a back button. So in this way. Action bar support package. Set display as home as up enable. It's a pretty confusing methods. I hope it has put. So this back button would be visible at this point. Now you can check the global object for a home, and we can call finish. So if the user click on the back button, it will eventually call this option item selected and then finish the activity. It will safely end the existing activity and go back to the previous state. So run this example. I think before getting into a web service, I need to see, probably we got some good scenario to look at. I'm going example. Now I can clicking back button, dismiss. I still have my image. So that did not disturb my activity stacks, and I still have my data preserved and everything is there as expected. So if you really want to put a back button on the top of action bar, I would recommend this way of putting the action bar set display home as up enabled and have a finish method manually called here. If you want to put it in the manifest parent activity, in fact, that's API level 16 onwards only supported. Uh, that eventually recreates the activity and you will end up losing, or probably you may not preserve the data. So, okay, anyway, we have put the back button. Now let us start writing the, what do you call, the async task or the HTTP get. These three arguments we have to decide now. The first one, string void. The progress dialog or the percentage thing, I'm not going to worry about it. URL is always string. The response is also going to come. That is also a string format because JSON is nothing but a kind of a formatted string only. So both the thing I kept it string. Implement those methods. And we prefer to have a constructors and others. So on pre-execute if required. I don't see any requirement. And the post execute. Post execute. The constructor for putting the progress dialog, which need a context. Of course, I can use this also because it's the inner class, but just want to keep the logic away. To connect to server, I have to connect. In the background, things are going to start. Pre-execute also, I'll use it. This block is this kind of probably this dialog may not be even visible for you because it's a very fraction of second these things will come. The time taking process dialog only you will see anyway. The time is taken between accessing the server and fetching the results. So maybe this is all fraction of second things will appear and this is what you will see, end up seeing it. And the final one, the progress dialog, at this point you will have the results here. Let us start writing the web service part. URL get from our variable argument var args. We need a string. I prefer a string builder because I'm going to read a line by line. A string builder has an append feature. So instead of using a normal string concatenate yourself, you can use a string builder to get the results. So I'm going to return at the end and making it as a string finally. Let us start with a HTTP client. This is a slightly tricky one. First, you need to get instance your HTTP client. There is a default client available in your phone, meaning the phone is already having access to internet or remote server. So it has a default client already been implemented so that you are getting instance or access to it. So that is called HTTP client. Next, try to make HTTP GET request supply the URL. Okay. Now we are going to get the response. HTTP response. Execute. You can directly access. Get 1 second. I had one of example return exclusive via HTTP get. Ah, right. So almost I did it. Actually, the error is not actually an error. It is just expecting exception block. That's it. So your HTTP client makes a HTTP GET request executed. Mean you are just call the URL. Now you will get a response. This is the time-taking process. So it will take time until you get the results from the server. So that this particular part will wait. So this particular progress dialog will be shown until you get the response. Okay. So assuming you have a response, now time to decode the response. Okay. In the previous example, we got the stream reader, remember? So we got a stream. So the same stream is going to come here. But this time the string or the stream is going to contain the string data. It is not going to contain a bitmap data. Last example was containing an image data, but this time it's going to contain some sort of a different data type. So I need to read the string. There is a kind of easiest way. You can buffer the string for some time. Buffer reader. A buffer reader wraps your input stream and it gets all the string connected and save it in a temporary space and helps you to take it as a single file or single stream. So that stream you can easily read it and convert into a existing string format. So I'm just using the buffer reader, just a wrapper. In fact, it need a stream reader, so input stream and some sort of size. So new input stream reader, and that in fact require input stream. This response. Okay, here it is. Get entity, get content. Yeah, here it is. So from the response, you retrieve the content through an entity. Entity parameter will contain the header information and other information like. So this particular thing will give you a stream formatted data, input stream data. That we in last example we directly called it, but this time it is going to contain some different format. You are getting the stream data. Maybe I can write for your flexibility. Making it. This will help. So get access to your input stream, buffer it for some time, get all the data ready, then go for decoding. So this is just a wrapper, buffer reader, and which will tremendously increase your performance in such a case. And if you really have some sort of encoding set, maybe you can also set some sort of encoding TF8. This will be documented one. When you are given a web service document, they'll tell you what kind of encoding type they are sending the data. Usually it is UTF-8, but maybe chances are there UTF-16. It depends on the person or developer who has written the web service. I just wanted to purposely because it's an optional one, but I kept it for your reference. So if at all any specific encoding type is being mentioned, you can mention over here. So it's a method, what do you call input stream reader contains a method overloaded one, so which accepts encoding type as well. And you can help the buffer reader to perform in a little better way, because as I was talking about, any data in Android, the object size in Android does not accept more than 2 MB of size. Chances are there the big chunk of data, the JSON which is coming here, which is a very big string, may contain more than 2 MB of data, or maybe more than that. Such a case, you can, of course, there is no way the Android can work. So I can have the buffer reader size fixed to 2 MB maximum. So that also improves, so that I can make sure any data which goes beyond to a size, I'll of course in this case the particular cache block would be called, exception would be thrown, so I can exit my application. Because if you are getting a very big response from server which is exceeding 2 MB, Android would not take the data. In that case, you have to do some other workaround. I mean, you cache the data in SD card, save it in a temporary memory. You cannot keep it in your file system. You need to take the data to SD card, write it. From there only you can access it. But usually any web service developer won't give you that much hooked, the bulky data. They'll only give you a lower end footprint, so they won't give you a 2 MB of big size or anything else. But these are all the thing is a best practice one. So the buffer reader size is 2 MB, and it reads the input stream, buffer it, and it is ready for decoding. I'm going to read the buffer reader line by line, so that I can extract those data and write it in a string builder file. Then I can use it for my purpose. I'm going to need a dummy text line by line. The first line is null. I'm going to put a while loop. While, as long as some condition met, the loop will run. Let me see. So the first, it will read line by line. It will read as long as the particular line reaches to null. Second, management. So, first line, the buffer reader start reading from top. There will be some data. As it start reading line by line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at the end it will come here, and after that it will try to read, it will have a null data. So that time the while loop will quit. So the while loop only work as long as the buffer reader contains a data. So read line means the first line, and each line it will read and get the data, retrieve them. So I'm going to keep those data in a string builder, capture them, append line. We can put a new line thing also appended along with our document. New line 1, I hope it is right. I hope it is right? This is not new line. Yeah, this is a new line. It means every line is read. We put a go to new line and start writing it, so that we will have a readable format. Otherwise it will write entirely in one single line itself, so we don't want that. So the string builder will have an new line character added at the whenever the buffer reader completes one single line. So the string builder will continue to have a data appended until the last line is reached and buffer reader gets empty. And now we have a string builder. This string builder will be returned as a string. As soon as there is a result, the result will be shown over here. Okay, how do I display? My log output is pretty bad, so I'll put a and one more thing I would like to tell, do not put any toast this kind of output which will require a UI access or UI thread. If you in do background, if you put a toast command, or I mean a toast function, it will eventually break your code, because a do in background is actually a thread. It has gone outside of your UI thread. You try to access a toast, it's a pretty dangerous over here, it won't work. So do not put the toast or anything. If you want to debug or you want to see, like, what is happening here, the toast won't work here. It will work here, of course, any other methods, because these are all the UI threaded methods. This is the do in background is the exclusive one which goes out of your UI thread and execute in a background. So that's why I put this here. I don't want to again use the context and manually do these things. Let me directly access it. The text. Okay, just HTTP. If it runs, it should work perfect. Now we need a button to handle the call. I hope already the string been added here. Call HTTP get some method is there. I'll call the same one, design. It's going to be a method needed, and instead of this image, let me put a edit text for testing. Edit text will put a scroll here, so I can, if you don't want to use a toast, I can use this. So, ID. There is an edit text called HTTP get will load the content in the edit text itself. I'm going to need a function name. Now we have a button which will call the web service. I'd like to have my edit text also initialized. Good. Since I have my edit text, I don't want this toast because it's a very big web service going to come. Fine. Now time to call the web service. The name called web service. Now we need a URL. We already have a URL here. So I don't need to worry about payload because the payload is already there in the URL itself. So this data is going to be sent to Google server and it will connect to that URL and get the response, and of course that response would be stored in the string builder, and finally it will be returned as a string, and that string will be shown in the edit text so that I will be getting my response. Let me verify. Hopefully everything fine. Just let it run once. So it's there in the middle. Okay, never mind. Connect something went terribly wrong. Okay, you need to debug. We already have internet permission added, so I don't see any problem on the internet thing. It's there, so let's see what exact exception it actually thrown. What went wrong? Here it is. Phone window. Something insane. Idea what exactly it's saying. Okay, as per my document, the URL cannot be a string. Let me see what is the method the HTTP GET takes. It needs a URI. Oh, okay. From URL. It actually requires a URI. Now this guy needs some sort of exception. Okay, 2 exception block has come. That's not good. Okay, I'll move this guy exception to this block itself. And one more exception is also there. Syntax exceptions. Okay, fine. Okay, I brought everything into one single exception block. It actually require a URI format. Maybe that's an error. Okay, now it is runtime exception and error occurred while green to background feature talks finish completion. Okay, caused by null pointers are attempting to invoke virtual method string builder on a null object reference. Okay. That's a usual error I often do. The string builder was null. So already a null value you cannot append it. So as we say, declaration alone won't be suffice. We need to initialize it. That part we missed it terribly. So that's where it is breaking here. That causing the progress dialog to dismiss abruptly. That was causing the window leak and all the stuff. So let me put back. Hopefully, result now should come. Ah, oh, got it. So the result finally is here. Unnecessarily wasted our time. Let me put back all those stuff which I was calling in the very beginning. Let me remove it and put it back to the button call or button click. Okay. Once you call this button, this will load, and also in the manifest I'll update. Main activity is the first one, and this activity works. Get example, click on it, and you have the results. So you notice the entire result has landed here. We have the JSON called from the URL. Now we need to pick the data and display in this URL. I mean, whatever the content you receive, I want you to display in a list view. So let me put a simple list view instead of edit text. Since we already have edit text for our testing purpose, I'm going to make it visibility set to gone, mean it will disappear, but still there. The object will still reside, but it won't be shown. Visibility invisible mean the object will be invisible, but it won't clear the space. There will be a amount of space will be still taken by this object. So time being, I'm going to keep it as gone. Now I'm going to add a list view. It's going to be below the same case. This I banded. See the design. It says the list view that the edit text is invisible. I mean set to hidden. We are going to need an adapter. Simple. Sorry, not the simple one. I want to make much more simple, so array adapter I'll use it. First one, the context. Layout resource. We'll use the Android libraries or templates. And the data. Okay, we are going to need want to make this array adapter public, sorry, global, so that we can notify the change. Adapter added. Time to decode the incoming string. For that, we have to have a simple look at it. This is a JSON. JSON has a object called result. Sorry, array called result, because if the result is an array type, and that inside the array there is a formatted address string. So by seeing it, I'm going to write the decoder. JSON array. First I need to build a JSON object from the string which is coming as a result. I think exceptions. Certainly this kind of suggestion won't come. Okay, so that as soon as you have a JSON object, JSON array needed, so which is called result array. From the JSON object, retrieve an array called results. From the results, I need to iterate over, so put a for loop. Still for loop not recommended, but I'm still using it. We'll find the workaround later. Get all the formatted address and capture it in your array list. First empty it. Add the string. From the result array, get so let me see that structure. Okay, it's an object still. get JSON object, and from that get string. That is called formatted address. Should be very careful, read the entire structure, accordingly build your parsing technique, and have all addresses added with the formatted address, and finally let, after the try catch, adapter notify dataset change. So your list view will refresh itself and add those data. Almost done. I'm going to call the get. I have really no idea why the result did not come. Adapter. Let me put a log to verify whether I'm getting the data. I think I'm getting the address. Flipkart, industrial, and all the stuffs. I think only the problem with the list view. So this adapter notify data set change sometime won't work at all. So what I'll do, I'll just recreate the adapter. For the time being, later we'll modularize if required. Okay, we got it. So we have a list which fetching the data from remote server. So this list populate the data from a web service, and we consume the web service and decoded the result, and finally we attach that to a Android UI. So in this case it's a list view. So now I can call any HTTP get using this one and get the values and decode the, if it is JSON, I'll decode in the JSON technique. So using the object retrieval, if you notice the key value, it would be as per this particular data type. I carefully read and where the object comes, where the string comes. So based on that I build it and I retrieve all the data in this way. So this is a simple example of HTTP GET. I thought of taking HTTP POST also because a lot of the stupid bug took our time. Maybe if time permits afternoon I'll see the HTTP POST also, because which is a very small change in this case, because only part, instead of HTTP GET we are going to use HTTP POST. So that's only and then couple of way to bundle or put the payloads so that can be sent to a remote server. So afternoon if time permits I'll write, and as so far we'll have this particular part as HTTP GET example. If you're still not able to access this URL, yes, of course, I'll put another workaround. and I'll give you the web service. You can load it in your Tomcat and see how things go. That's it.